This training is presented by the California Student Aid Commission. Welcome to our Middle Class Scholarship 2.0 Training Module Series. This is Module 3, Payments and Corrections. This module will cover the following MCS topics: Payments, Withdrawals, and Refunds, MCS Display Roster and WebGrants, Annual versus Term Corrections, Payment and Correction Scenarios, and helpful resources. First up is payments, withdrawals, and refunds. Campuses have two ways to report payments. The first is directly in WebGrants on the MCS Display Roster page. This is a great option for schools with small rosters or when recertifying or reconciling payments. The second method is through a batch process using the MCS Payment Roster file. The current MCS processing schedule is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights. As you can see from this slide, Monday and Wednesday nights are reserved for processing payments and corrections only. Friday nights also include processing of enrollment files for new MCS awards. When reporting payments, schools will also indicate the student's enrollment status. For the purpose of MCS payments, 12 or more units is considered full-time and grants the student 100% of the term award amount. 9 to 11 units is considered three-quarter time, and 6 to 8 units is considered half-time. Students enrolled in 5 units or less are considered less than half-time and not eligible for term payment. The percentages listed here refer to the term amount a student would be eligible to receive for disbursement. For example, a student with a $1,000 maximum term award who is enrolled three-quarter time would be eligible for 75% of that award, or $750. On the next slide, we will look at MCS eligibility usage per term. Here is a breakdown of MCS enrollment statuses and their respective status codes. An enrollment status code of 1 indicates the student is full-time and eligible for a payment amount equal to the max term award amount. A full-time payment would result in 50% lifetime eligibility used for a semester term and 33.33% lifetime eligibility used for a quarter term. Enrollment status codes 2 and 3 result in $0 awards and 0% lifetime eligibility used. An enrollment status code of 4 indicates the student was enrolled half-time, and 5 should be used for students enrolled three-quarter time. All less than full-time payments are rounded to the nearest whole dollar using standard rounding. Next, let's take a look at adjustment reason codes. These codes are reported in a separate field from enrollment status codes. An adjustment reason code of 1 indicates the student is enrolled in a post-baccalaureate program and therefore ineligible for MCS payment. An adjustment reason code of 2 identifies the student as not meeting satisfactory academic progress and is also ineligible for payment. Reporting code 5 is when the school uses the refund adjustment payment option to report a payment amount between $1 and the maximum term award amount. Finally, a 7 code is used when the student is ineligible for any other reason. Reporting an adjustment code of 1, 2, or 7 will result in the MCS award being withdrawn if the code is used at the annual level or for all applicable terms. If the student is ineligible for the award year, please report this code at the annual level in case the student should be reconsidered in the future. Next up, let's look at the MCS Display Roster in WebGrants. To find your school's MCS Display Roster, log into WebGrants for Institutions and find the link under the MCS banner. If the MCS menu is not visible, check with your school's WebGrants System Administrator for access. Following the MCS Display Roster link will bring you to the Roster Search page. At the top, enter your 8-digit school ID and select the appropriate academic year. To find a specific student, enter their Social Security number, DREAM Act ID, or CSAC ID. Then click Search to find MCS records. Up to 120 records can show at one time. To view a specific student's MCS record, click the eyeball icon next to their name. Now let's deconstruct the MCS Display Roster page for an individual student. Use this screen to post payments and make corrections. We will look at the full screen in detail over the next 3 slides. At the top, you'll see student demographics. This section includes students' personal identifiers, their education level, their current annual Cal Grant award, their annual MCS award amounts, assets reported on the ICER, their teaching credential program and foster youth indicator flags, the student's total MCS eligibility, including what has been used and what remains, the year the student entered the MCS program, and the parent and student contribution. Below the student demographic section are the transaction and annual data sections. In the transaction section, select your transaction type here. Use the bubbles to choose if you are making a correction or reporting a payment. If you select correction, you will be prompted to select if it is a correction to annual data or term data. This drop-down allows you to select annual eligibility updates for SAP, enrollment, asset ceilings, and more. These annual fields will also open up for changes if you select annual correction. Finally, you can view the student's payment history by clicking the box at the top right corner of this section. The last section of the MCS Display Roster page is the student's term data. You can use this section to post a payment or make term-specific corrections. Use the Enrollment Status drop-down menu to post a payment, and use the Adjustment Reason Code drop-down menu to make term-level changes to the student's status or to adjust a payment amount. Also, if a payment must be recertified, it will be indicated here in red. We will discuss recertifying payments in more detail in the next module. Red font in brackets shows what values are currently on file for the student. Updates to these fields will result in a correction that will be processed on the following processing day, which are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights. Now we will discuss annual versus term corrections. Here are some general rules for uploading corrections via the payment file. Correction and payment transactions may be submitted within the same file, but not for the same student record. If the same student record is submitted for a correction and a payment, the system will only apply either one or possibly reject both transaction types. When submitting a correction for a student, you may only submit an annual level correction or a term level correction within the same file. Annual and term level corrections cannot be submitted for the same student record in the same file, or else the transactions will be rejected. When possible, please follow the correction process hierarchy to determine which correction to submit first. Multiple term level corrections are allowed within the same file. We will discuss the correction process hierarchy on the next slide. Term level corrections may only be submitted for open terms, and schools can delete correction or payment transactions before the file is processed, but not after. When a student has been awarded MCS, but new information becomes available that may affect their eligibility or their award amount, the campus must follow the correction process to have CSAC recalculate the student's MCS award. When reporting changes, you should report your changes in the following hierarchy. First, annual level corrections to total cost of attendance, total income, or other aid that could potentially impact the student's MCS award eligibility should be submitted before term level corrections and payment transactions. Next, term level changes to institutional aid, federal aid, or any other fields should always be reported before a payment. Finally, payments should only be applied after the award information has been verified as accurate. Schools can update a student's overall MCS eligibility directly in WebGrants or in the payment roster file. By reporting one of the eligibility codes listed here in red, the student would be considered no longer eligible for MCS unless other information is received by CSAC. The student's MCS award will be withdrawn and the student will be removed from the roster. Please refer to the MCS Handbook for further information on eligibility changes. As of March 2024, WebGrants now has a feature that allows schools to update a student's status for each term. For example, a student who has already been awarded MCS as a fall-only student but decided to continue enrollment in the spring can be updated directly in WebGrants by adding a term. This replaces the previous method of the school withdrawing the initial award and re-uploading an enrollment file with the new student status. When a student's attendance status changes, a term level correction can be made to the cost of attendance fields to add or remove a term. Please note, annual level corrections to cost of attendance values will not update the student's status. The correction must be made at the term level. To add a new term, submit a term level correction to the cost of attendance that updates the value from $0 to the actual cost of attendance amount for that term. Be sure to also update all other aid fields accordingly. This will trigger our system to reevaluate the MCS award and update the student's enrollment status. Field number 9 of the enrollment file layout and field number 63 of the payment roster file have been updated to reflect these changes. Here is an example of how to award a new term for a fall-only student who is continuing their enrollment in the spring. Submit a term level correction to the cost of attendance from $0 to the corresponding dollar amount for spring cost of attendance. Be sure to also update other aid fields accordingly. This will trigger the system to reevaluate the MCS award and update their status. To cancel out a term, submit a term level correction with a $0 value for that term's cost of attendance. Again, this will trigger the system to reevaluate the MCS award and update the student's status. If there is a prior payment on file for that term, then the existing payment will go into recertify status for the institution to update to a $0 payment. Please note, if all terms are changed to a $0 cost of attendance amount, the student will become ineligible and the award will be withdrawn from the roster. We'll wrap up this module with some payment and correction scenarios while working directly within WebGrants. Scenario number 1, the student is not enrolled. First, select Payment as your transaction type. Then, select Not Enrolled under Enrollment Status. The payment amount must equal 0 for it to successfully process. This will not use any lifetime eligibility and reduces the award amount to 0. The max term award amount stays intact. If this payment type is posted across all terms or is combined with any other $0 payments, the student will be removed from your MCS roster. Scenario number 2, using the Refund Adjustment Payment option to post a dollar amount less than the maximum term award amount. Select Payment as your transaction type. Then click Refund Adjusted Payment under Adjustment Reason Code. Then enter your payment amount and save. Any amount greater than 0 will use 50% semester or 33.33% quarter eligibility for that term. The max term award amount will remain intact, and the term award amount will be updated to equal the payment amount. Scenario number 3, reporting a student as not eligible for MCS at the term level. Select Payment as your transaction type. Then select the appropriate status from the Adjustment Reason Code drop-down menu. CSAC recommends using a term-level correction to report a student's ineligibility unless the student is ineligible for the entire year. Please note, an ineligible correction at the annual level will withdraw the student from your roster. Here you can select the student is a post-baccalaureate, not meeting SAP, or is ineligible for another reason. The amount paid will automatically populate with a $0 payment. Scenario number 4, reporting a student as not eligible for MCS at the annual level. Select the correction and annual data options under the transaction type. Under Annual Data, select one of the following options for eligibility change: Post-Baccalaureate, not meeting SAP, not enrolled, over asset ceiling, or other ineligible reason. Selecting one of these options will withdraw the award and remove the student from your school's roster. Please note, the transaction will be rejected if the student has any existing reconciled payments. Finally, here are some helpful MCS resources. For more middle-class scholarship resources, be sure to visit our MCS webpage for schools. There you will find the comprehensive MCS 2.0 handbook, enrollment file layouts, payment roster file layouts, and other output data layouts. Thank you for watching Module 3 of our Middle Class Scholarship 2.0 Training Module Series.